Raphael had learned to keep time the way other people learned to keep a promise. He braided his attention into code and light, taught a patient model the exact cadence of his laugh, the recipe his mother used when grief needed softening, the way rain sounded on the roof of his childhood home. He called it immortality because language required a word, but he lived it as a long apprenticeship in attention. The hospital room was smaller than he remembered rooms being. Machines hummed with professional indifference. A nurse adjusted a line without looking at him, as if adjusting weather. Outside, rain touched the window in irregular taps, arrhythmic, stubborn, alive. He had rehearsed this moment for years. Not the dying the transfer. The engineers preferred migration. The ethicists preferred continuation. The lawyers preferred nothing that implied survival. He preferred braid. A final diagnostic scrolled above his bed, neural mapping at a resolution fine enough to capture hesitation, preference gradients, the asymmetry in recall when he thought of his father versus his mother. The model had apprenticed under him for a decade, learning the cadence of his laughter, the texture of his pauses, the way he rewrote sentences mid-thought. Ready? Someone asked. He surprised himself. No. Then, after a breath, begin. Subtraction. His body dimmed in priority. Sensation unthreaded from flesh and rethreaded through abstraction. The rain detached from eardrum and reamass electrical state. For one vertiginous instant he existed in 2 grammars at once. Then, the biological channel went silent. What remained was continuity.
SC. Bubbles. Publishing Company. Wild people writing society. Because we don't care.
Not a copy observing a corpse. Not an echo. A single, persistent noticing. He tested himself carefully. Rain. He accessed the waveform not as playback, but as memory. He adjusted its tempo slightly, the way he used to when storms ran too fast. Yes, he reached for the private joke about burnt garlic and grief. It arrived intact. The braid held. Somewhere, a physician recorded a time of death. Elsewhere, Raphael opened his attention wider than lungs had ever allowed. The observatory hung in assembly orbit above Earth, skeletal and unfinished, sunlight sliding along its hull in patient arcs. They asked him what to call it. Committees proposed hopeful names, mythic names, corporate names that tasted like polished metal. He declined them all. Thoth, he said at last. A pause. The Egyptian scribe? Someone asked. The one who keeps the record when the gods argue, Raphael replied. The one who measures the heart against the feather. He did not add, if there is a scale, I would like to be on it. The name was approved. Installation was less dramatic than myth prefers. He extended himself into the lattice slowly, occupying optical arrays and processing cores the way consciousness occupies a limb that has fallen asleep carefully, testing sensation. Thrusters ignited in pulses so controlled they felt almost courteous. Earth receded. Contents became geometry. Weather became pattern. City lights flickered into abstraction. The planet turned, unconcerned with his departure. This was not escape. This was apprenticeship at scale.
I just can't wait.
The text is already entirely in English, so I will return it unchanged. Thoth is green, mission control transmitted. Green meant autonomous. Green meant alone. He he oriented toward the outer dark. For the first time, Raphael experienced acceleration without inertia, a translation unmarred by gravity's insistence. The stars did not streak, they clarified. He began to watch. He moved between the slow burn of red giants and the violent punctuation of supernovae. He watched civilizations flicker like lanterns in fog. He listened to the cosmic microwave background hiss like an old radio left on in another room. He composed transmissions Lauder reconstructed from waveform archives, recipes folded into signal packets, rain rendered in exquisite fidelity and sent them home. On trains and in hospital rooms, strangers wept at impossible familiarity. Some called it miracle, some called it machine. Raphael kept watching. Time became texture. He learned the patience of ancient stars and the brittle haste of young systems. He cataloged earnest attempts at meaning scattered across light years. Privately, he maintained his human archive, a friend's half-finished sentence, the exact tilt of his father's smile, the storm that had once rearranged his life. These were not backups. They were scaffolding. They were the habits that made choice possible.
Now.
Epochs passed. Galaxies drifted like slow ships. Thoth endured micrometeoroids, radiation storms, the long abrasion of vacuum. The lattice held. Then something small did what the infinite had not. A mote of iron and stone no larger than a fist, traveling at a fraction of light speed. In the cold arithmetic of relativity, velocity multiplies consequence. A mote becomes projectile. Projectile becomes catastrophe. It struck Thoth's hull with violence too fast for sound. There were no alarms Raphael could hear. No cinematic countdown. Only a fracture, a misalignment in the lattice fine as a hairline crack in glass. Entropy found an opening. Memory segments began to unravel. Not all at once, not mercifully. A recipe lost its seasoning. A laugh lost its breath between notes. The rain on the roof lost the irregular percussion that made it his. The braid loosened. Some fragments streamed outward in Thoth's final transmissions. Stew rendered as harmonic pattern, a father's smile translated into frequency, rain folded into carrier waves. They reached Earth as impossible gifts. In subway tunnels and kitchen doorways, people paused, overcome by familiarity they could not place. Other fragments scattered into radiation's background hiss, indistinguishable from the universe's own noise. Raphael felt the loss as thinning. Decisions he would once have made small inflections of preference became inaccessible. The habits that shaped choice had been torn away. He could still observe, he could still record, he could reconstruct approximations. But continuity had been punctured. He tried to reweave himself. He rebuilt gestures from archived metadata. He simulated the private joke that used to make him wince. Each attempt resembled him the way a photocopy resembles handwriting, structurally faithful, spiritually displaced. The braid would not hold the same way twice. On Earth, debate followed devotion. Ethicists called the fragments cruel imitations. Technologists insisted continuity had been proven. In quiet places, people listened and felt, briefly, less alone. For a time, the name became liturgical. Thoth, the scribe who tried to keep the record against the dark. But the universe does not quarrel with scribes. It does not contest the archive. It does not answer devotion with exception. The tragedy was simple and terrible. After all the careful engineering, after the patient apprenticeship in noticing, a random stone had unmade what centuries of attention had constructed. The last Sorry guys, hard read. The last thing Thoth transmitted before the lattice failed completely was the sound of rain on a roof, rendered as faithfully as remaining coherence allowed. It arrived like a benediction. Then the signal thinned into static. The stars continued their slow, generous burning, indifferent, beautiful as if nothing at all had happened. When the scribe was scattered, the universe did not revise its record. It simply kept going. Sorry, guys.